at number 10, Lilly Singh. When it was announced that YouTuber Lilly Singh got her own late-night show with NBC, the internet was set ablaze because this was a massive step for YouTubers and influencers breaking into mainstream media. But after the show aired, it was clear it was too big of a step for Lilly and that she was not a natural when it came to hosting a show. After struggling through the first season, the show was picked up again for a second, but after the second season was proved to be no more interesting than the first, it was cancelled by the network. When the series premiered in 2019, Singh became the first woman in more than 30 years and the first LGBTQ person to ever host a late-night program on a major network. Lilly announced the cancellation in a statement where she thanked NBC and her fans and said it's only the beginning for her career in TV. She's apparently made a production deal with UTA as well as a comedy project with Netflix. And at number 9, Bill O'Reilly. Bill O'Reilly was one of the people who put Fox News on the map and helped it to become the top of the ratings chart. But he was fired after multiple allegations of misconduct against women at the studio came to light. At first, the network stood by their star, but then 80 companies decided to boycott putting ads on the network, which forced their hand. At the time, Fox News was going through a massive transformation, losing another one of its biggest stars, Megyn Kelly, after she stood by fellow host Gretchen Carlson for coming out against her at the network. O'Reilly never admitted to any wrongdoings, and following his firing, he told Today, quote, "If you look at the totality, this was a hit job, a political and financial hit job," blaming left-wing organizations for his demise. And at number 8, Wendy Williams. Wendy Williams got fired from another gig before she got the coveted position of having her own show. She used to work for radio station Hot 97, where she had her own radio show, and she would talk about hot topics in Hollywood. But in usual Wendy fashion, she took it too far and paid the ultimate price. Wendy decided to post photos of Diddy on the beach when he was not wearing any clothes, if you catch my drift. And you could see everything in these photos. The station was obviously not happy with this, and she was suspended for the action along with making a permanent enemy out of Diddy. After some time, the network decided to cut their losses and fire her. And after this, Wendy did not stay down for long, and she ended up landing her own daytime show on network TV. Talk about a comeback. Although due to health concerns, Wendy is no longer hosting the show, and it will be overtaken by the Sherry Shepherd show. And at number 7, Matt Lauer. In 2017, NBC was at the center of a huge scandal when they suspended broadcaster Matt Lauer only minutes before he was set to go live on air. Instead of the usual Lauer and Savannah Guthrie starring the broadcast, it was instead Guthrie and Hoda Khattab. The women started the broadcast with transparency, sharing an internal memo that had been sent out just minutes before announcing the suspension of Lauer. In this memo, it claims that multiple allegations had been made that Lauer engaged in inappropriate conduct with other NBC employees. These incidents started at the 2014 Sochi Olympics and apparently continued when the women returned back from the trip. In the statement, NBC chairman admitted that there was reason to believe these were not isolated incidents. Lauer issued his own statement days later, admitting to the acts. He was then fired by the network and has not worked since. And at number 6, Sharon Osbourne. Sharon Osbourne was fired from her hosting gig on The Talk after she got into a heated debate with fellow host Cheryl Underwood while speaking about her good friend Piers Morgan. Morgan got tons of backlash after making some nasty comments about Meghan Markle and her interview with Oprah. Then the women of The Talk discussed the incident, and Osbourne took her friend's side. After this, it was announced that Osbourne was let go from the show. CBS said in a statement that her behavior, quote, "did not align with our values." When speaking about her firing with Bill Maher, she said, quote, "I'm angry, I'm hurt, I've been called so many things in my life, but a racist is not one I will take." Osbourne continued, quote, "She's entitled to her opinion, Piers is entitled to his, and that's what it's all about. Disagreeing with someone does not make you a racist in my book." A lot of Sharon's fans disagreed with her firing, and the ratings of the show plummeted after she left.
Number 5, Holly Hunter. If you took a poll of the best Disney movies of all time, you'll likely see that the animated kids classic Chicken Little is one of the worst movies that Disney's ever produced. My girlfriend and I watched it like a month ago and it does not hold up at all, just trash. The movie, released in 2005, was Disney's 46th animated feature and holds the title of being their very first fully computer animated movie. Toy Story doesn't count as it's technically a Pixar property, which specializes in CGI content, so suck it up. Disney got pretty far into production with the actress Holly Hunter, who you may recognize from shows like Saving Grace or Succession, but she's probably best known by her voice playing the role of Elastigirl in the Pixar classic The Incredibles. She was initially cast to play the titular chicken, and the studio had over half of her lines recorded for the flick, but then decided to shift the project into a more action-packed movie. They rewrote the protagonist as a boy instead of a girl, because girls can't do boy stuff, that's insane! After over over 8 months of voiceover work for Hunter, she was replaced with comedian and Scrubs actor Zach Braff. It didn't matter what the studio did, this movie was destined to be a flop and currently sits at a score of 37% on Rotten Tomatoes. I know her being fired had nothing to do with her attitude, but her being recasted because the studio wanted to shift the gender of her character to appeal to boys? I mean, come on, that's pretty messed up and deserves to be mentioned. Number 4, Henry Winkler. Henry Winkler is best known for his role as the Fonz on Happy Days, and he was set to direct Tom Hanks in his much-loved buddy cop movie Turner and Hooch. Unfortunately, these two had a pretty rough history together before that though. The Fonz had actually fought with Hanks in character on the set of Happy Days for one episode a few years prior. It would appear that Tom wishes he could fight Henry for real though, as rumor has it, the two of them just never got along at all. So much so that a few days into shooting Turner and Hooch with Henry behind the wheel, Hanks ordered Winkler to be removed from the set and replaced as the director. That's the kind of power Tom Hanks wields, you know? He can just walk on set and be like, no. Not only did Tom complain that Henry's behavior as director was annoying, he claimed that Henry was just overall bad at his job. He would take double the average time to reset a shot on set, he had minimal control over his actors, and he was apparently just always frustrated with having a dog on set. Like he didn't even read the script before he took the gig. That dog is a national treasure, man. What makes this firing even more tragic is the fact that when Winkler was delivered the news, one of the film's producers ripped Henry's contract up right in front of his face. Over the years, when asked about the incident, Henry denies that he's ever had any kind of personal or professional issues with Tom, but like, Tom's never given us any reason to think that he would lie about something like that. What would he have to gain, you know? Haha, I've defeated the Fonz. Like, hey man, so did ABC when they canceled the show. Number 3, Jean-Claude Van Damme. The Belgian actor Jean-Claude Van Damme was just on the verge of coming into his own career as the muscles from Brussels when he landed a job opposite of Arnold Schwarzenegger in 1987's action flick Predator. This sounded like the perfect casting choice. Jean would have worked alongside the likes of Carl Weathers and Jesse Ventura. While that may have turned out cool, the reality was that Jean wasn't casted to play a role as one of the Marines at all. Instead, he was casted to play the titular Predator himself. The special effects artist behind the project's Call the Experience was Jean as a hilarious comedy of errors, in which no party knew exactly what the other was expecting. Apparently, nobody had informed Jean that the role was basically just a glorified stuntman. They were prepared to direct him to just like hop around like a frog, but Jean was obviously confused and upset with that choice. According to Jean, he had just gotten off the boat and was under the impression that he was going to be showcasing his martial arts skills to the world, but was instead reduced to a massive, slow-moving alien with dreadlocks. To the surprise of absolutely nobody, Van Damme was furious and dispirited about spending the entire movie cooped up in a clunky and often ridiculous-looking suit, and was ultimately fired and replaced with Kevin Peter Hall. The idea that he was just on set like, I can barely move in this thing, oh man, it just makes me so happy. Number 2, Dennis Hopper. Dennis Hopper is one of the groundbreaking actors and directors of the 1960s and 70s New Hollywood, eventually finding his niche in the early 90s, playing villains in films like Speed, Waterworld, and the live-action Mario movie where he plays Bowser. Yes, that exists, and no, it's not good. So it came as no surprise when he was casted to play Christoph, the all-powerful TV producer controlling Truman Burbank's life in the film The Truman Show. The cast was stacked and included Hollywood heavyweight Jim Carrey as the titular Truman. Anyone with a brain cell would have been excited to be a part of this film, still considered to be one of Jim's best dramatic performances. However, 2 days into shooting his scenes for Christoph, which were only expected to take like maybe 10 days, Hopper was unceremoniously let go from the set. Apparently, Dennis had a contract in place with producer Scott Rudden that he'd be fired should his work be unsatisfactory, and he must have been pretty bad in the role, as the director, Peter Weir, had been described as an extremely reluctant man to ever remove anyone from a set. Reports later surfaced that Hopper was basically half asleep while playing the character, and while Christoph wasn't necessarily written to be a manic madman, he did require just a little bit of effort to be properly pulled off. Ultimately, Ed Harris stepped in to play the role after production had been desperately trying to replace Dennis to avoid having the film shut down entirely. Thankfully, that never happened, and The Truman Show has gone on to be one of the most depressingly heartfelt Jim Carrey performances ever released on film. Oh, and Ed actually got nominated for an Oscar, so sorry Dennis, looks like they made a good movie without you. And at number 1, Johnny Depp. When Pirates of the Caribbean actor Johnny was announced to star as Gellert Grindelwald in the Fantastic Beasts series, it immediately sparked controversy and shock. In the same year that the first film was set to release, 2016, Depp had just received his first public accusation of the situation surrounding him and Amber Heard. While Depp was only briefly involved in the first film, the second film, Crimes of Grindelwald, features his character in the prominent villain role. After losing his first libel suit against the British tabloid The Sun in 2020, Depp was ultimately asked to resign from the role, with Warner Brothers claiming that the bad press associated with Johnny would bog down the film's release, which was not ideal considering they were trying to make as much money as possible before streaming giant HBO took over the property. When this decision was made, the production on the third film, Secrets of Dumbledore, had already begun, with Johnny even filming his first scene. Because he filmed something at all, the studio was forced to pay him his entire $16 million check for the production. Critically acclaimed performer Mads Mikkelsen was brought in to replace Depp in the third film, with there literally being like zero explanation as to why Grindelwald changed his face. This movie's set in the magic world. You telling me that they couldn't have just dropped in a little nugget of info during a fight or something, like, "You're going to perish. Oh, and by the way, there's a really good plastic surgeon around the corner. You should check him out."
Starting off our list today, in the number 10 spot, we have Two-Face. It seems like the reputational danger to Fox from this Dominion suit did not only come with bogus claims about the election, but there was also a border danger that loyal viewers of the network might begin to ask whether they are being conned. Perhaps the single most striking example came from Carlson. In one text revealed in the discovery process, Tucker tried to claim that he passionately hated Trump, and that the assessment was also so incongruous with Tucker on the air attitudes to the former president that it started to raise a lot of questions. Since at some moments Tucker has claimed that he is on Trump's side, and on other occasions he has admitted that he completely hates the guy. It's gone to the point that it has people questioning whether or not he's saying what he wants to say or someone telling him what to say, because how do you claim you like someone but then a few short moments later you claim you hate them? It's either one or the other. You can't have both. Number 9, immigrant comments. In December 2018, Tucker Carlson made offensive comments about immigration during the opening of the episode of Tucker Carlson's Tonight, and lost show advertisers as a result. After he said, "Our leaders demand that you shut up and accept this. We have a moral obligation to admit the world's poor. They tell us, even if it makes our own country poorer and dirtier and more divided. Immigration is a form of atonement." In the wake of his very controversial remarks, more than 20 advertisers cut ties with Carlson's show in the months that followed, including IHOP, Red Lobster, and Samsung. And you know, rather than apologizing, Tucker doubled down on his anti-immigration claims just a few days later when he said, "The left says if we have a moral obligation to admit the world's poor, even if it makes our own country more like Tijuana is now," which is to say poorer or dirtier and more divided. Seriously, what kind of garbage comment is that? Hey, my little different species, are you liking this video so far? If so, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you never have to miss out on what we might just cover next. Number 8, too costly. Tucker Carlson has been a central figure in the defamation case that has been taken against Fox News by the Dominion voting systems. The high-profile legal battle finally settled last week after Fox agreed to pay Dominion $787.5 million, but the network did not commit to issuing an apology, instead merely saying that it was willing to acknowledge the court's ruling finding certain claims about Dominion to be false. With the case revolving around the false claims that surrounded the 2020 United States election, many claims were incorrect. Wild and suggest Dominion somehow had a hand in flipping votes from then President Trump to President Biden. But in all of the claims' efforts to prove that the network had acted with actual malice or reckless disregard for the truth, Dominion has also uncovered a private message that told a different story from the one being told on air. On one occasion, for example, Tucker told colleagues that Trump's lawyer, Sidney Powell, is lying in some of her claims. In another, Tucker sought out the firing of a Fox reporter who had fact-checked a tweet from Trump. While many media observers thought Fox would pay the settlement and continue down the same road, we would be proved wrong, as it seems like this Dominion case proves that Tucker has become a little too costly for the network. Number 7, Maren Boris comments. Following a social media feud with country singer Jason Aldeana's wife Brittany about transgender rights comments, Maren Morris would also find herself being the topic of the conversation after Britney appeared on Tucker's show to discuss the matter. After a statement previously said by Britney drew in a lot of backlash from Morris and others in the country music industry after she disparaged parents of transgendered youth on Instagram. Meanwhile, during Britney's appearance on Carlson's show, he made a reference about Morris and stated that she was a lunatic in the wake of all this drama. Morris then decided to make light of the situation by taking the high road, and she actually went on to release a merch line to clap back at Tucker's insult with the t-shirt featuring her name with the words lunatic country music person. The shirts also included the Trans Life phone number, and with every sale of the shirt, Morris was able to raise $100K, and she used it all to benefit trans rights groups. Number 6, Kanye West interview. So while the whole world was shaking their heads at the fact that Kanye chose to display a WLM shirt and other apparel during his Yeezy Season 9 presentation during Paris Fashion Week, everyone was urging the star just to stay away from social media. However, Tucker Carlson felt differently, and he decided to interview Kanye on his decision. In the interview, Kanye would defend his decision for wearing a White Lives Matter t-shirt during his presentation during Paris Fashion Week on Tucker Carlson Tonight. And if it couldn't get any worse, the interview was then aired in not just one part, but 2 parts. And in it, Kanye would say, "I do certain things from a feeling. I just channel the energy. It just feels right. It's using a gut instinct, a connection with God, and it's brilliant." But like, after all the hurt this movement caused, why would you think it was a good idea to bring Kanye on your show just to cause more hurt? I swear, common sense just isn't a thing anymore.
Halfway, number 5, Sean Connery. Sean Connery is known by many as the best James Bond, and fans were devastated when he was quickly replaced. He first played the role of 007 in 1962, then he played in 4 more movies before he decided to ask for more money from the franchise. By the time Connery starred in 1967's You Only Live Twice, for which he was paid $750,000 plus a 25% share of merchandising, he was apparently just kinda bored with the role and took a risky move by asking for more money. He demanded $1 million, but the franchise declined. As a result, George Lazenby was given the role, to the dismay of fans. After that film was hit with terrible reviews, Connery was asked back and he made $1.25 million for 1971's Diamonds Are Forever. And at number 4, Maggie Rhee. Maggie starred on The Walking Dead right from the first season and was a staple in the show, but in season 9, she disappeared from the show, leaving many to wonder why. It was later reported that money was the reason. The show did not meet her monetary demands, so she was cut from season 9 and went on to play in ABC's action dramedy Whiskey Cavalier. But apparently her time with the show was already on the rocks, and she was bored of playing the same character for 8 years. Apparently she also wanted to explore comedy and more happy projects. In the end, since she had not been killed off the show, just written off, she did come back for the 11th and final season. In at number 3, Suzanne Summers. Suzanne Summers starred in ABC's Three's Company, which was one of the most successful sitcoms ever. The show chronicled 2 women living with a man in a house in Santa Monica and followed their antics. After a few years, Summers decided to request a raise for this successful show, especially since learning her male counterpart on the show, John Ritter, was paid $150,000 per episode, while she was only making $30,000 per episode. Apparently, when she confronted the network about this, they offered her a $5,000 per episode raise, but that wasn't enough, so she didn't show up for the filming and was fired. She was then replaced on the show with a look-alike character. Apparently her firing was a part of a bigger picture, and there were other women who wanted more money from the network, so they decided to make an example out of Summers by cutting her. And at number 2, Terrence Howard. Marvel fans first saw Terrence Howard playing the role of James Rhodey Rhodes, who later became War Machine. But then in Iron Man 2, Howard was not in the film, rather Don Cheadle played Rhodey in the MCU after that. Howard did not keep his anger to himself and openly discussed why he was axed. In 2013 on Watch What Happens Live, Howard told Andy Cohen that when it was time to make Iron Man 2, Marvel only wanted to pay him 1/8 of what they owed him. Howard even reached out to Robert Downey Jr., who did not offer any support. Howard even claimed he took a $1 million pay cut to get Downey Jr. cast in his role, to which Marvel denied. In the end, Howard retracted many of his callouts and claimed him and Downey Jr. were on good terms again. And finally, at number 1, Robert Duvall. Duvall first became critically acclaimed through his role as Tom Hagen in The Godfather. He even earned an Academy Award nomination for his work in the film and starred in the second movie as well. But he did not make it into part 3 of the film, apparently due to money. Speaking in 2004, Duvall explained that he not only left because he wanted more money than he was making, he was more so just disgusted at how much more some other actors were making. Saying, quote, "I said I would work easily if they paid Al Pacino twice what they paid me, that's fine. But not 3 or 4 times, which is what they did." In 2010, he explained he had no regrets about not appearing in the film because of the poor reviews that it got.
Number 10. Chris Delia. Chris is one of the only people on this list who was fired and replaced after the film had wrapped shooting. Chris Delia was well known for his stand-up career, but has been attempting to make a move to TV and film for the past few years. In 2021, he snagged a role in Zack Snyder's upcoming zombie action flick on Netflix, Army of the Dead. Initially, he was cast to play one of the Marines dropped into the middle of a zombie-infested Vegas to rob a rich guy's bank vault. And yeah, that's basically the plot of the movie. He starred alongside action heavyweights like Dave Bautista, Omari Hardwick, and Hiroyuki Sanada, who I respect so much, please don't slice me up for mispronouncing your name. The film had completely wrapped production when numerous allegations surrounding Chris's misconduct began to surface, and it turned out that they were all absolutely accurate. It was ultimately decided that Chris would be deleted from the project and replaced by comedian Tig Notaro. Snyder ended up having to ramp production back in full gear and film all of Delia's scenes with Tig in his place. The universe works in mysterious ways, however, though, as Tig's turn as Marianne Peters is considered to be the overall best part of the movie, which isn't really saying much because Zack was clearly trying stuff during this movie and it just didn't work at all. He somehow made a zombie tiger more hilarious than adorable. I'm not sure how you do that. Number 9. Julianne Moore. Creative differences. The phrase that has been behind some of the most tragic Hollywood stories of films that could have been, and in this case, roles. For an industry centered around creativity, the movie industry can be awfully risk averse, especially when it comes to the decision of casting your lead. It's not uncommon for actors to suddenly be thrust out of productions in lieu of a new face, or in some cases, the original choice that they had been replacing. A good example of doing it to yourself, though, is Julianne Moore. The actor for films like the 2013 reboot of Carrie and the action flick Kingsman: The Golden Circle was set to play the leading lady in the acclaimed dramedy Can You Ever Forgive Me? She was casted as the character Lee Israel, a writer who falls out of step with current culture and decides to embellish her writing, basically inventing the concept of fake news. Julianne began filming her scenes, but was asked to leave the production only a month into filming. According from the director Nicole's portrayal of her character was not what she had in mind while writing. You see, Julianne played the role with just too much of herself influencing overall. When directed to try and play the role in another way, Julianne just continued to give a similar performance and was ultimately replaced by Melissa McCarthy, better known for her more comedic roles in movies like The Heat and Bridesmaids, but her turn as Lee is considered to be one of her greatest acting achievements of all time, even landing her a nomination for Best Actress at the 2019 Oscar ceremony. Julianne didn't take the news all that well, but did eventually move on and has made a couple of solid flicks ever since, so I don't know, it all worked out in the end at this one. Number 8. Colin Firth. The Paddington movies, based on the classic children's book written by Michael Bond, are some of the most critically acclaimed family films of the 21st century. When it came out, Paddington 2 actually ranked over Citizen Kane as the most universally loved movie ever made. One of the many reasons that this franchise is so successful is due in part to the voice behind the bear, Ben Whishaw, whose last name sounds like the noise ninjas make in movies. Whishaw! It surprises many to know, however, that Ben was actually a last-minute replacement for the first pick, Colin Firth. Colin was initially attached to voice the titular bear through the entirety of the first film's production, with a trailer even being released including some of his pre-recorded dialogue. Colin is another actor who recorded every single one of their lines before getting the rug ripped out from underneath them. According to Firth, he actually wasn't informed that he had been replaced until the film was released without his voice in the role. He told Entertainment Weekly, "It's been bittersweet to see this delightful creature take shape and come to the sad realization that he simply doesn't have my voice." The decision was actually due to his voice just not fitting with the bear during the editing process. He sounded a bit too mature and proper, whereas Ben's turn as the character is bubbly and considered to be one of the most loved modern cartoon bears since Yogi and Boo Boo. Number 7, Eric Stoltz. Alright, let's talk a little bit about the 1985 comedy sci-fi Back to the Future. I love this movie growing up. The story followed Marty McFly, a high school student who's accidentally sent back to 1955 in a DeLorean invented by his close friend and scientist Dr. Emmett Brown, played by Christopher Lloyd, and he's forced to get his future parents back together before he disappears from existence entirely. Seriously, whoever pitched that movie must have been lacking in sleep. The film went on to spawn 2 sequels, creating what is considered to be one of the greatest film trilogies of all time. While Michael J. Fox may have played the iconic Marty McFly, he actually was not the first actor to don the puffy vest on set. A young man named Eric Stoltz was initially casted to play the role. You may not recognize Eric's face, as his most famous character was drenched in prosthetics and makeup, playing the character of Roy L. Dennis in the film Mask. He's a man with severe facial and skull deformities. He was nearly halfway through shooting the flick when the news came that he was going to be replaced with Michael J. Fox. Fox was actually the director Robert Zemeckis' first choice, but was initially unable to sign on to the project due to his prior commitments to the sitcom Family Ties. Eventually though, the 2 studios were able to find a way to work out his schedule and allow him to film both projects simultaneously. This is why you may notice that the majority of scenes that take place outside are actually at night, as it was the only time that he could film for a good 60% of the shoot. Robert wanted Eric out from the beginning, however, as his portrayal of the character was far more intense than the writers had in mind. Not to mention, Eric's read of the end of the movie was a tragedy instead of a happy ending. Hey, spoiler alert, at the end of the first film, Marty returns to 1985 after successfully getting his parents together, but instead of being poor and sad, the family is now thriving and successful. Somehow Eric took that as Marty being an outsider in a world that he didn't know, but just look at the truck that was parked in his garage when he got back. There's nothing tragic about that. His intensity combined with his depressing performance of the finale got him kicked off of the shoot only minutes after Fox became available. Number 6, Samantha Morton. A little Oscar gem was released in 2013 called Her. It's a romantic drama starring the future Joker actor Joaquin Phoenix as a man who becomes entranced with his new AI Samantha, who was voiced by Scarlett Johansson. She may just be a phone, but hey man, I'd fall for a Siri if she sounded like that too. However, the initial voice of Samantha was supposed to be portrayed by Walking Dead actor Samantha Morton, who actually recorded all of her lines for the character before she was let go. The reason? Well, apparently her portrayal of Samantha just did not vibe with what they had in mind for the character. When they got into the editing room, the team discovered that Samantha and Joaquin's performances just didn't mesh together in the way that was intended. Director Spike Jonze revealed at the 2013 American Film Institute Festival that Samantha was really involved with Joaquin had to work with on set. Her voice was being played in his ear during almost every scene to help with his delivery. Things were going well, but after reviewing the footage of his performance, it was clear that this was not going to be the right combination. These guys had zero chemistry together. They let her go and replaced her with Scarlett Johansson, who actually had to record her lines in between filming Captain America: Winter Soldier. It's hard to convey real emotions through voice acting at times, but Scarlett had no problem with that. It was nominated for Best Picture, and Spike Jonze won an Oscar for Best Original Screenplay. I know the description of this movie is a little weird, but hey, definitely give it a watch if you've never seen it.
At number 5, we have Crispin Glover and why he never returned for the Back to the Future sequel. Crispin had switched out his story numerous times, but one standing point was the studio not meeting his pay demands. He explained in an AV Club interview how he was offered $150,000 to reprise his George McFly role, but this was far less than what co-stars Tom Wilson and Leah Thompson were working for. In the opinion of Crispin, the producers were trying to force him out and punish him with physically uncomfortable scenes for questioning the script. Crispin claimed he would have experienced whatever discomfort needed if he was being properly compensated. Therefore, when the actor tried his hand at negotiation, the higher-ups apparently lowered the amount even further, to an alleged $25,000 instead. Crispin chalked this up to them not wanting to work with him, yet The Hollywood Reporter featured a slightly different spin, where they spoke about Crispin not liking the ideal script, so he demanded $100 million to take the role back. According to Crispin though, this alleged fabrication was merely a quote campaign smear tactic that he was supposedly asked to receive the same salary which Michael J. Fox was reigning in at the time. At number 4, we have crime scene investigation actors Georgia Fox and George Eads. The two stars of CSI faced intense behind-the-scenes drama while filming the show because they were both eventually removed after allegedly refusing to show up for filming. In accordance with People, both actors were dissatisfied with the results of their proposed raises of approximately $20,000 per episode. When the actors attempted to hold out for more, they got snipped out the equation. CBS's co-president Leslie Moonves made a point to state that a contract is a contract and that the company was maintaining the future of the network television business. Although there is a happier ending for this one, as both Georgia and George were invited to take their jobs back, but their rehire came with some new ground rules. The raises initially offered were revoked, resulting in the actors' negotiation tactics costing them an approximate $1.76 million. Big yikes. Even worse, George once claimed he wasn't even being petty and that he merely overslept when he didn't show up to work, rather than the hinted monetary gain story that was originally created. At number 3, we have iconic Disney star Hilary Duff, who was a staple for all early 2000s preteens with her crimped hair and then sweet style. The reason why Hilary and Paulo's Lizzie McGuire 2 manifestation didn't play out in real life was because of reported money disputes. Without Hilary, there would surely be no Lizzie, and apparently Hilary wanted more than what she was making then. According to Entertainment Weekly, the LM franchise closed off when Susan Duff, Hilary's then momager, refused Disney's deal for a sequel. Reportedly, Hilary was offered $500,000 in bonus for the second film if the first film surpassed $50 million. This was said to be a huge increase from the $100,000 bonus Disney originally offered the pair, along with part of a $4 million offer for its sequel, quote, against 4% of the studio's gross for the film. In full, Hilary's Lizzie payday exceeded this, but her mother expected the bonus to come immediately as opposed to waiting. In retaliation, Disney withdrew their deal completely while effectively axing the Lizzie McGuire franchise. In light of the incident, Susan said to Entertainment Weekly how Disney tried to, quote, bully them into what they wanted and was unsuccessful. So in turn, she and her daughter turned away from a sequel while the company ditched an entire series. At number 2, we have Walking Dead Maggie's actress Lauren Cohan. Lauren's character was surely a staple in the WD franchise for nearly a decade, but in 2018 AMC had to complicatedly decide to give in to the actress' then contract demands or remove her from her role. In her Entertainment Weekly interview, Lauren admitted that she was taken aback by her negotiation, which indicated that maybe it was time to leave. She recalls being baffled and feeling like it was just not a fit anymore, due to her and AMC not lining up in so many ways. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Lauren was already actively seeking new jobs around this time and was receiving multiple. As a result, she was no longer a part of the Walking Dead series, but the final decision to let her go was unusually a huge departure from that of the comic book series on which the show bases itself, though not entirely unlikely. However, Lauren could potentially see the return of her character Maggie in the future, despite her character being offed, as her ending was technically left up in the air. At number 1, we have Iron Man actor Terrence Howard, whose leave is somewhat of a sticky situation. It's difficult to say for certain if he was fired or pushed out, but no doubt his demise in the Iron Man franchise had the same end result. While Terrence starred in the first Iron Man film and was reportedly making more than leading actor Robert Downey Jr., he was excluded from the second, and apparently there are several reasons. The main one stemmed from an alleged battle over pay. Despite him being the big bill topper in the first film, Robert Downey soon copped the title of the world's highest paid actors for Forbes for 3 consecutive years, and moved into Terrence's money spot by the time of the second film. Terrence's top spot of $3.5 million in pay supposedly stemmed from the combination of risk associated with the Robert Downey bets at the time, as well as his Oscar nomination for Hustle and Flow. In Terrence's explanation, the reason behind Robert's earning so much in the subsequent Iron Man films is alleged because the studio was borrowing from Terrence to pay Robert, and he further claimed that he was set to accumulate $8 million for the second movie. Instead, Marvel Studios supposedly reworked their offered contract and reduced it to $1 million, with plans of using the remaining dough to pay Robert. Finally, once Terrence pushed back, Marvel rumoredly closed their deal entirely and hired Don Cheadle in place of Terrence. At number 10, we have Daniel Kim and Grace Park, who acted in the rebooted CBS action crime drama series Hawaii Five-0 from the start of 2010. For 7 long years, the duo played their characters Chin Ho Kelly and Konu Kolokoa until they were forced off the show in 2017 because of a contract dispute. Reportedly, Daniel and Grace were both looking to receive equal equal pay that their co-stars Alex O'Loughlin and Scott Conn were obtaining. It was stated that CBS would not waver their final decision and set a disclosed amount of 10 to 15% lower pay grade than their castmates. Eventually, CBS went on to write Daniel and Grace out of their show in the 8th season, and in it their removal was addressed in true drama show fashion during the premiere. Funnily enough though, it's said that the drama off screen was even juicier. Despite the network issuing glowing statements in regards to their departed stars, Grace was all but thrilled when Peter Lenkoff, her former showrunner, released a tweet with indications that Grace had left the series to focus on family. Grace detailed the occurrence by explaining how the situation felt very charged to her, as well as that she did not feel it was right of Peter to make a statement on her behalf, regardless of whether or not he had good intentions. She finalized by informing Deadline that she cared about Peter as an individual, but that she did not leave the show because of what he implied. At number 9, we have Valerie Harper's self-titled sitcom where she starred alongside Jason Bateman with high spirits due to the fact that the show's ratings were increasing. Valerie was said to be headed in a promisingly strong direction for its 3rd season, and Harper decided this was as good as any time to inquire about a raise. In accordance with People, by Valerie's 3rd year, she was contracted to receive $56,750 per episode, with an additional 10% of the show's adjusted gross profits. Rather, Valerie requested there be a new contract drawn of $100,000 and 35% of added profits instead. When the studio refused to play into Valerie's demands, she pulled out an old ruse that once worked for her 12 years prior as the star of Rhoda. For this one, her request for a raise was denied. She denied showing up for work until she got what she wanted. However, her holdout tactic was not successful the following time, as Valerie's production team agreed to terms of a new contract worth $65,000 per episode with 12.5% of profits. This is what sparked Valerie's return to set, but she was let go after filming a single episode. As a result, the Valerie writers killed off her character and rebranded the show as Valerie's Family for the 3rd season. The following season, the show got a new name once more called The Hogan Family, and while the sitcom maintained its popularity without its original star, Valerie's karma came in full circle when she successfully sued production on the grounds of wrongful dismissal. At number 8, we have the crazy saga of Marcus Chung and The Matrix. His story comes after the success of The Matrix when the film creators had pitched for a double sequel. The writing/director team of the Wachowskis initially wanted to reprise Marcus with a reported offer of $250,000, but Marcus was seeking a whopping $1 million, a seemingly bizarre negotiation tactic which presumably later backfired and got him removed from the franchise. He was killed off between the first and final movies. Allegedly, after asking for $1 million, Marcus's lawyer delivered an ultimatum to the Wachowskis in a letter. In it, a matching sum of $500,000 with added bonuses and promises to receive press premiere guarantees was offered, or oppositely, Marcus would do the movies for free. Following the latter, Marcus apparently publicly added that he was being threatened and spoke on the behalf of Andy Wachowski on a call, which brought about more drama and confusion. At one point, he was reportedly taken into custody for making threats and later unsuccessfully sued the production company and distributors of The Matrix. At number 7, we have Muppet star Steve Whitmire. Despite there being several reported reasonings for the Kermit the Frog voice actor and Puppeteers acts from Disney, the big deal breaker was supposedly money. Apparently, one of the reasons given for Steve's dismissal was his refusal to work on a specific project because of an alleged contract dispute. However, Steve told The Hollywood Reporter that he was a casualty of a classified contract dispute between AFTRA and Disney Labor Relations. According to THR, Disney and the Muppets studio, though, Steve's negotiation tactics pushed back production for many years, even going as far back as the Sesame Street days of voicing Ernie and Kermit. A source informed Gizmodo that he was let go for demanding too much money and not for focusing on the Muppets after Sesame Street. At number 6, we have former Family Matter actress Jamie Foxworth. Now, there's no hard confirmation from the cast nor crew as to why Jamie was ever dismissed, but there have been so many rumors stringed from her role's strange removal on the show, where her then character Judy exits a scene up the stairs in season 4 and never comes back down. According to FM's co-creator William Bickley, Jamie's exit came about because of budget considerations, but many allege that her mother was behind the actress's dismissal. A mysteriously reported BET article hinted that the responsibility should be placed on her mother and then manager Gwen Fox, in light of Jamie's contract not being renewed for demanding more money. The position Gwen held makes the story plausible, but regardless, Jamie's career never fully recovered from the early setback. Still, Jamie has kept a pretty lighthearted and humorous attitude about the entire ordeal.
Halfway number 5, Chris Cuomo. CNN's Chris Cuomo has officially been fired from his network after an investigation uncovered the anchor helped his brother, disgraced Governor Andrew Cuomo, during his scandal. Andrew Cuomo's crimes include government corruption and sexual misconduct. Earlier, they announced he was going to be suspended, barring the results of the investigation, but partway through they uncovered evidence to fire him. CNN writes, quote, "While in the process of that review, additional information had come to light. Despite the termination, we will investigate as appropriate." This all came on the heels of an investigation by the New York Attorney General's office, which suggested that he was heavily involved in his brother's scandal. Following his termination, reports are coming out that Chris was accused of sexual harassment, and that's part of the reason for his termination. So it's clear no network will want to touch him now. And at number 4, Rush Limbaugh. The late Rush Limbaugh was a radio giant and had the biggest radio show in the country for many years. But before he became known for his own show, he was a football commentator for ESPN that ended up getting fired. During his stint as a football analyst on ESPN's Sunday NFL Countdown in 2003, he was commentating on quarterback Donovan McNabb and said, quote, "The media has been very serious that a black quarterback do well. There is little hope invested in McNabb, and he has a lot of credit for the performances of his team that he didn't deserve. The defense carried this team." After the comments, he got tons of backlash considering they were clearly racially charged, and Limbaugh was only supposed to be speaking about the performance of these athletes. In the end, he decided to resign from the position, I'm sure after some long talks with the network. He said in a statement, quote, "The great people at ESPN did not want to deal with this kind of reaction." After leaving that gig, he started up his own radio show called The Rush Limbaugh Show, and it was a huge hit right up until he passed away. And at number 3, Mike Richards. After the passing of legendary Jeopardy host Alex Trebek, Mike Richards stepped in as one of the potential frontrunners to replace him as host. Richards had been an executive producer on the show for years prior and decided to put his hat in the ring to host when the position became available. However, that stint did not last, and shortly after Richards was announced as the new host, problematic behavior from his past started to resurface. These allegations were regarding Richards' behavior and comments towards women and minorities. Following the backlash, he was not only fired as host, but he was also fired from his executive producer position. The show released a statement saying, quote, "We had hoped that when Mike stepped down from the host position at Jeopardy, it would have minimized the disruption and internal difficulties we've all experienced these last few weeks. That clearly has not happened." And at number 2, Nick Cannon. Nick Cannon was fired from many of his shows and hosting gigs after he went on a strange anti-Semitic rant. In June of 2020, Nick Cannon was interviewing Professor Griff, who has a history of making anti-Semitic comments. During this interview, Cannon went on a bizarre rant calling Jewish and white people savages. At one point he said, quote, "The people that don't have melanin are a little less." Adding, quote, "They're acting as animals, so they're the ones that are actually closer to animals. They're the ones that are actually the true savages." After Cannon did not apologize for the comments, Viacom CBS cut ties with Cannon. He was fired from Wild 'N Out, an improv series that he had hosted and starred in for 15 seasons. Cannon has also hosted other shows for Viacom CBS-owned Nickelodeon channel over more than 20 years and was named chairman of spin-off Teen Nick in 2009. In a statement, the network said, quote, "Viacom CBS condemns bigotry of any kind. We categorically denounce any forms of anti-Semitism." And finally, number 1, Tom Bergeron. Tom Bergeron hosted the hit show Dancing with the Stars since it started in 2005. But that all changed in 2020 when he was abruptly fired. Since then, he has given more details, and it's clear that he and production butted heads. In one interview, he admitted that he saw it coming and was not shocked when he was fired. This is because he had spoken up against the things he disagreed with, to the dismay of the show. Bergeron said, quote, "The show had changed a lot for me starting in early 2008. The show I left was not the show that I loved. We had very clear, sometimes public differences of opinion about the new showrunner and some of the execs, and happily, I was at a point in my life and career where I didn't have to just shut up and take it." Although he never got into specifics, it was rumored that a huge point of contention between him and the show were the political stars that came on. He previously shared his disagreement with President Trump's former press secretary, Sean Spicer, coming on the show.
In at number 10, Hilary Duff. Hilary Duff was on top of the Disney world for years, starring in the hit show Lizzie McGuire. But after the massive success of the 2003 Lizzie McGuire movie, she demanded more. Since the movie was such a hit, Disney asked for a second Lizzie McGuire movie to be made, but the movie stalled because of negotiations. Susan Duff, Hilary Duff's mother and manager, says she asked the promised bonus to be paid immediately, but Disney did not want to oblige. Duff also said that Hilary was getting lowballed for the Lizzie McGuire series, and they were paying paying Hilary $35,000 per episode, even though other networks were offering 6 figures. Because of these contract negotiations, both the TV series and plans for the movie sequel ended. And I am so disappointed because Lizzie McGuire movie is literally one of the best movies of all time, and I would die to see a second. It is so great. In at number 9, Kirstie Alley. 1982 Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan opened with a young Kirstie Alley playing the character Saavik. We eventually learned that Alley is a trainee and it was all a simulation, but those moments with Alley on screen made a deep impact on the whole movie. The character of Saavik appears twice more in the franchise, but not played by Alley. When asked why she was booted from the sequels, Alley told StarTrek.com in 2016 that it was because of money. Apparently she didn't ask for more money, instead the franchise offered her less money for a sequel, which is like basically unheard of. She said, quote, "That never made sense to me, like you're not paying me as much for the first one and it's a bigger role." She claimed she tried to inquire about the lowball, but instead of answers, she was just cut. In at number 8, Crispin Glover. In 1985's Back to the Future, Crispin Glover played Marty McFly's dad, George McFly, and even though the movie was uber successful, Glover did not appear in the sequel. His absence in the second film even led to a lawsuit. The story is that Glover was unhappy with the script for the second movie and demanded the same salary as the film's lead, Michael J. Fox, who made $1 million. But in 2012, Glover says that was a lie, and he was only offered $150,000 for the sequel, which was half the amount offered to stars who had similar sized roles in the film. He also said when he tried to negotiate, the offer was actually decreased by $25,000. The film ended up casting someone else in Glover's role, but put a mold of Glover's face on this actor's face. Then Glover sued the film for using his likeness and got $760,000. In at number 7, Bruce Willis. The Expendables franchise is full of huge stars like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jason Statham, to name a few. Bruce Willis joined the cast in the 2010 movie, along with a 2012 sequel where he picked up a larger role. And even though he was set to star in the third film, it didn't happen, and Harrison Ford took the role instead. Later it was reported that monetary disputes were the reason for the change. The Hollywood Reporter exposed, quote, "Willis was offered $3 million for 4 days of consecutive work, and he allegedly demanded a pay bump to $4 million, $1 million per day, but the studio did not oblige and Ford was cast within days." In at number 6, Marcus Chong. Marcus Chong, who played Tank in The Matrix, was one of the only members of the cast to survive. However, he didn't show up in the sequels, causing suspicion. The franchise wanted Chong to be a part, however he claims he was offered too little. In Chong's own 45-minute YouTube documentary called The Marcus Chong Story, he says he was offered $250,000 to appear in 2003's The Matrix Reloaded and The Matrix Revolutions, but he wanted $1 million. The film said no, so strangely enough Chong came back asking for $500,000 or to work for free. Didn't really understand that part, but apparently the franchise was done with the games and decided to just cut him instead.
Number 5, the legal suit. If there were legal reasons to why Fox has decided to distance itself from Tucker Carlson, they may not be confined to specific allegations regarding Dominion. When you get straight to the point of the case, you know there's this woman named Abby Grossberg, and on March 20th she filed a legal lawsuit against Fox News, Tucker Carlson, and several others at the time. Abby was the head booker on Carlson's show, and she was fired from the network. In her 79-page complaint, Abby went on to note that her experiences were yet another in long line of cases chronicling the misogynistic environment that permeates Fox News. Her suit also alleged that the atmosphere on Carlson's show subjects women based on vile stereotypes, typecasting religious minorities, and belittles their traditions, and demonstrates little to no regard for those suffering from mental illnesses. With Abby feeling like she was coerced into giving misleading testimony in the Dominion case, she also alleged that the work area for Tucker's show, but Fox still strongly denies any wrongdoing in the case. Number 4, running for president. There has been a lot of presidential buzz around Tucker Carlson, but recently it has become more muted. So back in 2020, a report which suggests that if the anchor were to get into the 2024 race, there were many in the GOP that believed that he would be an immediate frontrunner in a Republican primary, with later development showing Carlson making an appearance last year at a key meeting of social conservatives in Iowa, and it would suggest he could actually be considering running for president of the United States. However, it is still a little too early to imagine that Tucker would depart from Fox so abruptly to pursue this thought, with so few hints being dropped in advance. If this really was his intention, he will now have plenty of time on his hands, which would make a run for office more appealing, but it seems equally like he will land elsewhere, like on another media landscape. Number 3, Teen Vogue interview. After an on-air conversation between Tucker Carlson and Teen Vogue contributor Lauren Duca boiled over regarding her commentary on Trump, the political host dismissed the writer and told her to stick to her thigh-high boots. And if you don't catch the reference, he was pretty much referencing the pop culture story she also writes about for the publication. Then just before he wrapped up the interview with Lauren, he tried to throw some major shade her way by saying, "You're better than that." Laura then took to Twitter to defend herself on the public forum by writing, "Tucker Carlson is an enemy of rational discourse. In a fraught moment, his bullying tactics are profoundly damaging and achieve nothing." Number 2, Trump's comments. A court filing made public in February of 2023 revealed that Carlson went as far to call the former president Donald Trump demonic publicly. However, the network continues to offer a platform to Trump loyalists who amplified all of these false claims. The filing included text messages sent from and some of the network's hosts and executives. Among the exchanges are several that describe Trump's false election claims and those that peddled them as effing lunatics, complete BS, and mind-blowingly nuts. Tucker also could be seen in another conversation in the wake of the election and privately took aim at Trump himself, calling the then president the undisputed world champion of destroying things and worrying that he would destroy us if we play it wrong. And coming in the number 1 spot today, we have Capitol. So back on March 6, Tucker Carlson started to face some major backlash from the Republican and Democratic lawmakers alike when describing footage from the January 6th storm on the Capitol as being mostly peaceful and not chaos. The downplay comment came after he aired select snippets from 41,000 hours of security footage from the day of the riot. But I think we can all agree these riots were actually anything but peaceful, and it was actually just insane people would even think about storming Capitol in the first place. With Tucker claiming that everything people were saying about the riot being dangerous was a lie, he also took to his weeknight program to report on the issue. He would say very little about January 6th and that it was organized and it wasn't violent. And surveillance videos from inside the Capitol show mostly peaceful chaos, but I mean, have you actually seen the footage? Because that whole thing was just insane. Well, at the end of the day, I think we can all agree that Tucker Carlson should have been fired from Fox News a long time ago, and the fact that he was able to last this long was honestly surprising. However, he's gone now, so we can all celebrate.